𝐂𝐨𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 used to be a certified bum who got violently booted from his adventuring party, completely oblivious to the fact that he was, in reality, an S-rank healer. Now entirely unemployed and borderline homeless, he decides to hit the reset button on his life by opening a medical clinic, but through sheer anime protagonist sheer dumb luck, he accidentally ends up magnetizing a harem of absurdly overpowered beast girls instead. On the exact day he was kicked to the curb by his party, Aston, the painfully arrogant group leader, tossed him a single insulting gold coin, claiming it was his severance package for being a useless meat shield who spent all his time doing absolutely nothing. 𝐂𝐨𝒵 tried to defend his case, but the rest of the party just laughed in his face, warning him to never ever mention that he was once part of their squad. So, swallowing his pride, our boy took the loose change and hit the road. Meanwhile, in a much shadier part of town, a young elf girl named Lily was getting the absolute stuffing beaten out of her by some local slave traffickers. When she finally decided to fight back, one of the thugs casually stabbed her, prompting his partner to yell at him for ruining the merchandise. While these two brain-dead criminals were arguing over their damaged goods, 𝐂𝐨𝒵 casually strolled up behind them. Taking one look at the dying elf girl, he offered to buy her with his pathetic severance pay. The slavers, possessing zero business ethics, snatched the money and ran off. 𝐂𝐨𝒵 then crouched next to Lily and healed her fatal wounds in a matter of seconds. This completely blue-screened the poor girl's brain, considering she was already mentally preparing to meet her maker. She was absolutely floored by how effortlessly he pulled off the healing without chanting a 10-minute magical monologue. Sobbing her eyes out, she thanked him for giving her a second spawn in the game of life and introduced herself. When she asked for his name, 𝐂𝐨𝒵 introduced himself as a self-taught, completely unlicensed back-alley healer, making it painfully clear that he was a certified nobody. Right on cue, his stomach growled loud enough to wake the dead. Trying to play it cool, he offered to buy her some new clothes and grab some grub. A little while later, they were sitting across from each other in a sketchy restaurant. As Lily happily stuffed her face, she noticed 𝐂𝐨𝒵 wasn't eating and asked why. He tried to play the "I'm not hungry" card, but the brutal reality was that his financial situation was looking redder than a parade of toxic exes. Curious, Lily asked what he actually did for a living, and 𝐂𝐨𝒵 casually admitted he was between jobs after getting kicked to the curb by his former adventuring party. The very next second, a lizardman named 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 busted through the doors nursing a pretty nasty arm injury. 𝐂𝐨𝒵, possessing the medical instincts of a magic-fueled Dr. House, immediately noticed the wound was caused by a magic weapon and started healing the guy on the spot. Once he was done, 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 was absolutely dumbfounded and demanded to know who this miracle worker was. Lily proudly introduced 𝐂𝐨𝒵 as a low-budget healer. However, 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 swore on his scaly ancestors that he had never heard of a healer with this kind of raw horsepower. In a fit of sheer excitement, the grateful lizardman practically threw several gold coins at 𝐂𝐨𝒵 before sprinting off, promising never to forget him. This left 𝐂𝐨𝒵 momentarily paralyzed. Once his brain finally processed that getting paid actual money for doing his job was a normal concept, he boldly declared that he was going to open his own healing clinic. But since he didn't have a medical license, he clarified it would be a highly illegal underground clinic. Lily immediately demanded to be his live-in assistant, and when he tried to shoot her down, she aggressively reminded him that he was technically her master now. Realizing he couldn't win, he let her tag along. The dynamic duo then wandered into the most abandoned, rat-infested part of the city to look for real estate, eventually stumbling upon a creepy, dilapidated old house that was miraculously still standing. A clearly terrified Lily warned 𝐂𝐴𝒵 that places like this were basically VIP lounges for angry ghosts, but 𝐂𝐴𝒵 could not care less. He kicked the door open, with Lily hiding behind him while casting a light spell so they wouldn't trip over invisible garbage. As they inspected the property, an angry poltergeist named Carmilla materialized out of thin air and tried to murder them. 𝐂𝐴𝒵, completely unfazed, just repelled her using a blast of healing magic. He then casually apologized to Carmilla for the aggressive home invasion, but bluntly stated he couldn't leave because this was the only prime real estate in his budget, proposing that she'd just accept them as her new roommates. Naturally, Carmilla wasn't interested in a timeshare and summoned a horde of lesser ghosts to evict them, but 𝐂𝐴𝒵 swatted them away like annoying mosquitoes. Realizing she was outgunned by a guy with a medical degree, Carmilla begrudgingly agreed to let them stay under the strict condition that they were banned from going to the second floor. The very next morning, after they finished setting up their bootleg hospital, 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 walked in dragging his sister Zofia, who was sporting a fresh bullet wound. After a quick scan, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆's deadpan informed Zofia that he was going to have to amputate her entire arm and hit her with a medical bill of 1 million gold coins for the privilege. 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 scoffed, telling Xenos he had some serious nerve charging that kind of premium, considering she was Zofia the Tornado. Upon hearing her edgy nickname, Xenos realized he was standing in the presence of one of the 3 major crime bosses of the slums and the leader of the Lizard Men, basically a discount, scaly Robin Hood. Unbothered, Xenos explained that he wasn't just going to chop her arm off, he was going to grow a brand new one from scratch, which was a massive headache, so he wasn't doing it for free. He added that he swore a blood oath to never work for free again. Zofia was already shell-shocked since regenerating a limb was supposed to be medically impossible. But seeing the absolute 𝐂𝐨𝐴𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 confidence radiating from him, she told him to do his worst. To kick things off, Xenos summoned a surgical scalpel made entirely out of his own raw mana, a flex that Zofia had never seen in her life. While performing the amputation, he casually numbed her pain using overlapping healing magic. Then he combined defensive barriers with multiple high-tier healing spells to literally 3D print her arm back into existence, from the bone marrow to the muscle fibers and skin. Zofia was absolutely flabbergasted, praising him as a world-class medic. Right at that moment, Xand noticed Carmilla casually hanging upside down from the ceiling like a bat and freaked out. Xenos nonchalantly explained that the ghost was just their moody roommate, leaving the lizard man baffled that this guy was casually cohabiting with the undead. Before leaving, Zofia promised to send all her injured goons to Xenos' clinic, essentially making him the official mob doctor. A few days later, while Xenos and Lily were having a nice chat about the brutal, ongoing turf war between the lizard men, orcs, and werewolves, their front door was violently kicked off its hinges by a pack of werewolves who strutted in like they owned the zip code. Their alpha, Linga, pointed at Xenos and declared she came to collect his head because his miracle healing was giving the lizard men an unfair advantage in the gang war, and she was taking it personally. Without warning, she leapt at him with a massive axe, but to her absolute horror, the weapon shattered into a million pieces against his passive defensive barrier. Xenos calmly asked Lily to go wait in the back room while he dealt with the unruly patients. Once she was out of sight, Linga ordered her fur-covered boy band to jump him. Predictably, they couldn't even scratch him. Realizing they were fighting a budget version of Gojo Satoru, Linga pivoted her strategy and ordered her men to just trash the clinic instead. Xenos politely asked them to stop, but they refused to listen, until Carmilla floated into the room. The ghost was ready to curse their entire bloodlines for messing up her living room, but Xenos gently asked her to stand down. When Linga saw an actual angry spirit taking orders from this random healer, she dropped to her knees faster than a dropped Wi-Fi signal and started begging for forgiveness. It turns out werewolves are deathly afraid of ghosts, and seeing Xenos command one made her realize he was not a man to be trifled with. She even forced her entire squad to grovel and apologize. Not long after the werewolf incident, a massive orc showed up looking for Xenos, asking him to make a house call for 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, the leader of the orc faction. Xenos agreed to follow the guy after hearing 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆's condition was critical. But when they arrived at the stronghold, Xenos was annoyed to find her sitting elegantly on her throne like a queen. 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, on the other hand, was thrilled to finally meet the legendary underground doctor that the lizard men and werewolves wouldn't shut up about. She then asked if he could figure out why she was completely paralyzed. Xenos stepped up, scanned her body for external trauma, and quickly diagnosed the problem. She had swallowed a raw mana stone. 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 sheepishly admitted she ate it by accident because she got the munchies. Xenos rightfully called her an absolute idiot for making such a rookie mistake, but told her not to sweat it, as it would just pass naturally when she went to the bathroom. As he turned to leave, 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 called out, dramatically revealing that the stone was going to explode inside her stomach because she accidentally chewed a piece off. She had already accepted her explosive fate, but her loyal goons were stubbornly refusing to evacuate. Because of this, she wanted to hand over her massive fortune to someone who wouldn't waste it, and Xenos was the lucky winner. Instead of jumping for joy over becoming a millionaire, Xenos just sighed, summoned his mana scalpel, and surgically extracted the ticking time bomb from her gut in less than 60 seconds, leaving the entire orc gang speechless. To prevent the rock from blowing the whole base to Kingdom Come, he simply crushed it between his hands, absorbing the blast with a localized defensive barrier. The orcs were reeling in shock that he didn't lose his fingers, but Xenos brushed it off like he just squashed a bug. He tossed the key to her vault back to 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, claiming her entire fortune was way too much payment for a 1-minute surgery. Highly impressed by his chaotic good energy and humility, 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 burst out laughing, declaring she liked him and promising that the orc faction owed him a massive life debt. Xenos insisted he didn't need anything from them, but 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 wasn't taking no for an answer. vowing to send her top meatheads to act as bouncers for his clinic. A few nights later, a deeply pouty Lily pointed out that ever since Xenos had befriended the 3 mafia bosses, they had been loitering around the clinic way too much. Xenos agreed, genuinely confused as to why they kept showing up without any actual injuries. This made Lily facepalm, realizing that this man was still completely oblivious to the fact that he was the prize. At that moment, 𝐂𝐿𝐴 phased through a wall and spilled the tea, revealing that Xenos' unintentional 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐴𝐵 had completely captivated the 3 crime lords. She casually predicted they would start a literal war over him soon. Xenos assumed 𝐂𝐿𝐴 was just trolling and refused to entertain her ghost gossip. However, the very next day, all 3 female bosses showed up at his clinic at completely different times, each informing him that they were formally declaring war on the other 2. 𝐂𝐿𝐴's prophecy was spot on. The following afternoon, Xenos strolled into an abandoned coliseum to watch the 3-way gang war unfold, assuring the bloodthirsty ladies that he wasn't there to play peacekeeper. Taking his total lack of interference as a green light, 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 yelled out that whichever woman survived the bloodbath would claim Xenos as her official husband. The other 2 aggressively agreed, and the absolute slugfest began. The fight dragged on for the entire day, until one of the underlings finally noticed something weird. Despite hitting each other with lethal attacks, nobody was actually taking permanent damage. That's when it clicked. Xenos had been passively AoE healing the entire battlefield from the bleachers the whole time. 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 stopped punching and pointed out that if he kept doing that, the fight would literally last until the end of time. Xenos agreed with the muscular Amazon, stating they were free to keep brawling if they wanted, but he made it crystal clear that he was putting every single drop of healing magic on their tab because he sure as hell wasn't doing pro bono work. This absolute Sigma move made the girls laugh, but they realized fighting was pointless if they were just going to end up in crippling medical debt. They called a truce, even though they were all still highly competitive for his affections. Later, Lily asked Xenos why he stepped in to ruin the waifu war. He explained that his old master once told him a top-tier healer is someone who actively makes the world a better place. This made Lily realize that even though Xenos was as greedy as Mr. Krabs, he was willing to bankrupt his own business model just to ensure peace in the slums. This made her simp for him even harder. Gathering her courage, she told him she liked him. Xenos, possessing a skull thicker than a vault door, assumed she meant it in a purely platonic co-worker way, and said he liked her too. Poor Lily wanted to scream into a pillow, realizing there was no point in confessing feelings to a man who was denser than a black hole made of Goku and Luffy's combined brain cells. Weeks later, the commander of the Royal Knights summoned Krishna, his icy vice commander, to brief her on bizarre rumors that the violent turf wars in the slums had mysteriously evaporated. Krishna called cap on that, stating the beef between the demi-human factions had lasted longer than her last relationship, so peace was statistically impossible. But the commander wasn't taking any chances. He was sweating bullets over the idea that if the slums actually united, they could overthrow the kingdom, especially since the constant gang violence was great for distracting the peasants from the king's actual political failures. He ordered Krishna to march down there and investigate the rumored mediator who had single-handedly brokered this peace treaty. At that exact moment, Xenos violently sneezed because someone was talking trash about him. His unofficial monster girl harem immediately panicked, assuming he had caught a cold. Linga and 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 instantly offered to warm him up using their generous physical attributes, which made Lily feel incredibly insecure since her chest was about as flat as a cutting board. Panicking, she ran off to brew some tea instead. Xenos told the girls to quiet down so he could focus on healing 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆. Once he finished, the lizard men bowed in gratitude. Lily returned with the tea and innocently asked 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 how they managed to get shot up again if the gang war was over. 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 grimly explained that they got blasted by the Royal Knights while doing their daily thieving routine. Curious, Xenos asked if the bullets were magic, and 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 confirmed it was the vice commander herself, the infamous Iron Rose, who lit them up. Hearing this, 𝐂𝐿𝐴, the resident oracle of nonsense, smirked and predicted that Krishna was going to be the newest addition to Xenos' growing collection of emotionally unstable, superpowered women. Xenos told her to shut up. Later that afternoon, Krishna went full stealth mode, wearing a moody hood to interrogate locals in the slums about Xenos. The first lizardman she grabbed refused to snitch. She tried to stick a gun in his face, but the guy just yelled for 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, forcing the cop to make a tactical retreat. While running through the alleys, she couldn't stop wondering how the lizard siblings had completely regenerated from the fatal bullet holes she gave them yesterday. But she had a more pressing issue. She was hopelessly lost. After wandering aimlessly like Zorro, she accidentally stumbled right into 𝐂𝐨𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 clinic looking for directions back to civilization. However, the second she saw Lily, her cop instincts kicked in, assuming 𝐂𝐨𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 had kidnapped the elf, and she immediately shot him center mass with her magic gun. Lily completely lost her mind and jumped in front of 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆, screaming that he was her savior. Realizing she just committed police brutality on a random civilian, Krishna awkwardly apologized to the elf for jumping to conclusions. Right then, 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆's voice echoed out from the cloud of dust, completely jump-scaring the cop. Krishna demanded to know how he survived a hollow point magic bullet to the chest, to which he casually replied that he just put up a shield. Krishna called his bluff, claiming her guns pierced standard magic barriers. She marched over, poked him, and realized he didn't have a scratch. Convinced he was some sort of black magic sorcerer, she interrogated him, but 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 assured her his last name wasn't Potter. Introducing herself, she practically ordered him to cooperate with her official police investigation. Hearing her name drop caused 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 and Lily to freeze, while Carmilla was literally dying of laughter in the corner, holding back a massive, "I told you so." In the end, 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 had to stick a giant red flag outside his door to warn his mafia patients to stay away, and then sat down to sip tea with the cop who just tried to murder him. Krishna laid out her mission. She was hunting down the mediator who stopped the gang wars, claiming that anyone with the street cred to unite the slums was a direct terrorist threat to the crown. Lily immediately started defending this mysterious mediator, which made Krishna narrow her eyes and ask if the elf knew the guy's identity. Lily swore she didn't, and despite her lying being painfully obvious, Krishna just sighed and admitted she didn't expect this case to be easy. 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 politely offered to walk her out of the maze-like slums. But as they headed for the door, Krishna locked eyes with his examination table and asked why it was there. 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 lied, claiming it was garbage he was throwing out. Krishna instantly claimed the table, stating she needed a forward operating base for her investigation and offered to pay rent to sleep there. With dollar signs flashing in his eyes, 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 agreed, and they went back to drinking tea with a seething Lily. The elf was absolutely furious that the cop was moving in and tried to establish dominance by showing off how domestic she and 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 were, practically spoon-feeding him. Krishna, however, possessed zero romantic radar and couldn't care less, which only made Lily angrier. In a final, desperate play, Lily attempted a seductive pose she learned from Carmilla, but utterly failed, face-planting into 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆's lap and falling fast asleep. 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆 had to awkwardly carry her to bed. When he returned, Krishna started interrogating him about the slavers he bought Lily from, clearly unsatisfied when he said he didn't know their names. Pivoting the interrogation, she asked if it was scientifically possible for a healer to completely regrow an arm, noting that 𝒁𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 was walking around with 2 perfectly functioning limbs, despite Krishna explicitly blowing one off. She was absolutely convinced the mediator was the mastermind behind this illegal healthcare and swore to lock him up. From her toxic tone, 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 deduced she really hated the slums. When he asked why, she trauma dumped, explaining her mother was a saint who helped the poor, only to be murdered in these very alleys for a cheap ring. Because of that, Krishna dedicated her life to being an edgy vigilante cop, rising through the ranks to become the youngest vice commander ever. Her emotionless, brutal efficiency earned her the nickname Iron Rose, mostly because her face was permanently stuck in a resting scowl since the day her mom died. The next morning, Krishna went out on patrol, so 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 took down the warning flag. But while he was in the middle of a checkup with 𝒁𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, Krishna unexpectedly walked back in. The second the cop and the mafia boss made eye contact, they both drew their weapons, demanding to know what the other was doing there. Lily tried to de-escalate, feeding Krishna a blatant lie about 𝒁𝒏𝒆 just being lost, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a chainsaw. Krishna tried to psychologically press 𝒁𝒏𝒆 about her regrown arm and the mediator's identity, but 𝒁𝒏𝒆 was way too street smart to fall for cop tactics. Changing the subject, 𝒁𝒏𝒆 told Krishna to stop harassing the slums over the slave trade, dropping the bombshell that the real kingpin was a filthy rich noble named Calendar. Krishna refused to believe a criminal, and just as the guns were about to go off, 𝒂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 stepped between them and casually dropped the ultimate spoiler. He was the mediator. Krishna aggressively rolled her eyes, assuming he was just taking the fall to protect his demi-human buddies, and stormed out. Lily peeked out the window and told 𝒂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 that the crazy cop was marching in the exact opposite direction of the slums, making 𝒂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 realize she was actually going to raid Calendar's mansion solo. Shortly after, Krishna bullied her way into Calendar's estate under the guise of a routine security check. Faking a bathroom emergency, she immediately started snooping around the most heavily guarded sector of the house. To her absolute disgust, she uncovered a massive underground dungeon packed with missing children. While trying to calm the kids down, 𝐂𝐨𝐴 materialized from the shadows, shot her in the arm, and started delivering a classic unhinged villain monologue. But before he could finish her off, 𝐂𝐨𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 and 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 kicked the door in. The corrupt noble was furious at the home invasion and dumped his magazine into 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆, but the bullets just bounced off his passive barrier. Realizing he was outmatched by a walking tank, 𝐂𝐿𝐴 tried to make a run for it but tripped over his own feet and dropped his gun. 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 picked it up and aimed it squarely at the noble's head. 𝐂𝐿𝐴 instantly started squealing like a pig, begging for mercy. But 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 was absolutely boiling with rage over the caged kids. 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 pulled the trigger but used extreme precision magic to limit the blast force, completely vaporizing the noble's clothes while leaving him perfectly unharmed. The sheer shock of being suddenly naked made 𝐂𝐿𝐴 pass out cold. 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 then casually healed Krishna's blown-off arm and ribs, forcing her to finally admit that he really was the mediator. With the lizardmen's help, they evacuated the kids. As 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 and 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 were leaving, Krishna stopped him, asking why he bothered to save a cop who tried to shoot him. He deadpanned that she still owed him rent money for using his clinic bed. This actually made the Iron Rose burst into genuine laughter, proving she wasn't just an emotionless porcelain doll after all. A few days later, while 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 and Lily were taking a stroll through the slums, they passed a spot that gave 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 nasty flashbacks of Aston. The pompous idiot had originally recruited 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 strictly because he was the only guy in the alley who didn't look like he had tuberculosis. For years, 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 broke his back carrying Aston's party. He healed their fatal wounds and secretly cast massive buff spells to make them hit harder, but Aston's ego was so astronomical, he genuinely believed he was just built different, leading to 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆's unceremonious firing. Cutting back to the present, Aston's current party was exploring a cave on a high-paying quest for a noble named Fennel, desperately trying to climb the adventurer ranks. The overconfident clowns walked in thinking it was a tutorial mission, but the second they encountered the firefoxes they were supposed to hunt, they got absolutely smoked. They barely escaped with their lives, and one of their mages was bleeding out. Aston immediately blamed his teammate for being trash. Andras clapped back, pointing out Aston didn't do jack either. Before a fistfight could start, 𝐂𝐿, the tank, nervously asked if maybe, just maybe, all their past flawless victories were actually because 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆 was hard carrying them from the back line. Aston called that absolute heresy, but begrudgingly admitted they needed a healer, promising to hire a replacement. 10 days later, they marched back into the cave with a licensed healer named 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴, but it was an absolute disaster. During the rematch, Andras took a fireball straight to the chest. 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 started panic healing him, screaming at Aston that they needed an emergency medevac. Furious, Aston ordered a retreat. Once outside, he grabbed 𝐂𝐿 by the collar, screaming at him for failing to tank the hit. 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 snapped, defending 𝐂𝐿 by explaining that if 𝐂𝐿 hadn't thrown up a last-second defense buff, Andras would be a pile of ash. Aston refused to listen to logic, demanding 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 just heal the guy completely so they could go back inside and finish the quest. 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 looked at him like he was an idiot, stating that not even high-ranking royal clerics could instantly heal third-degree burns without a hospital. This forced Aston's tiny brain to reboot, but his pride absolutely refused to let him admit firing 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆 was a mistake. He asked 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 if it was possible for an unlicensed scrub to possess elite-tier healing magic. 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 confidently said no. This validated Aston's toxic delusions, fully convincing him 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆 was still useless. Later, when they reported back to Fennel's servant, they were brutally fired for failing the mission. Aston literally got on his knees and begged for one more chance, and the servant took pity on him. 𝐂𝐿 asked Aston what his grand master plan was, considering half the team was in comas. Aston, swallowing a bitter pill, declared they were going to kidnap 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆 back into the party. He still refused to admit 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆 carried them, but figured having the meat shield around would artificially boost their luck again. The next day, the losers marched into the slums looking for 𝐂𝐿𝐵𝒄𝒆. Since they had zero tracking skills, they approached Zofia, trying to hire her gang to find him. The second Zofia realized these were the ungrateful parasites who abused 𝐂𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, she literally told them to drop dead and kick them out. Desperate, they went to Linga, who gave them the exact same hostile treatment. They finally tried 𝐂𝐴𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, who essentially chased them out with pitchforks. Humiliated and raging, Aston tried to gaslight himself into believing the mafia bosses rejected them for political reasons, not because of 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆. But suddenly, 𝐂𝐨𝐵 spotted 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 walking down the street with Lily. Aston sprinted over, aggressively declaring that he was generously allowing 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 to rejoin his party. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 completely shattered the man's ego by dropping a hard no. When Aston demanded to know why, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 bluntly stated the working conditions were a toxic nightmare, and he would only return if Aston paid him an exorbitant hourly rate. Aston scoffed, refusing the terms, and smugly stated 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 was homeless and had no other options. Right on cue, a dozen slum residents walked by, happily waving at 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 and thanking Dr. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 for saving their lives. A group of kids even ran up to hug his legs. Seeing the man he called garbage being treated like a local messiah made Aston's blood boil. When 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 tried to walk away, the egotistical maniac threw a tantrum and tried to physically assault him. Out of nowhere, Krishna materialized and put a bullet right by Aston's feet. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 looked at the cop and dryly asked what she was doing in his neighborhood. Krishna stated she was looking for him, to which 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 pointed out she was miles away from his actual clinic. Krishna, fully accepting that she had the directional awareness of a blindfolded bat, ignored the insult and told Aston that if her aim was better, he'd be a corpse. Aston couldn't compute why the vice commander of the Royal Knights was protecting a slum rat. Pushed by sheer rage, he lunged at 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 again. Krishna didn't even blink, loudly declaring she was arresting him for attempted assault of a civilian. Aston, being the ultimate coward, instantly blamed 𝐂𝐨 for the whole idea and ran for his life before the handcuffs came out. A few days later, the mafia waifus swung by the clinic to gossip with 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 about Aston's pathetic attempt to recruit them. They admitted they sent spies to tail Aston and 𝐂𝐨, but the idiots accidentally lost them in the crowds, and they had been off the grid since. Lily guessed they just gave up and went home, but Zofia knew Aston's toxic ego wouldn't let him quit. She theorized he went to the Underground Guild, a shadowy syndicate that accepts literal assassination jobs for the right price. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 doubted Aston had the cash for that kind of premium service, but Carmilla chimed in, noting that if Aston was desperate enough to beg 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 to come back, he was definitely backed into a corner. Zofia then brought up an urban legend, a mysterious figure known only as the Guide, who supposedly took chaotic jobs just for the hell of it, regardless of the payout. Later that night, after the girls went home, Lily found 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 sitting alone in the dark. She brewed him some tea and sat in silence with him until she eventually passed out. After carrying her to bed, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 walked back out to find Carmilla drinking his tea. He sat down and the two actually had a deep conversation. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 revealed that back in the day, he tried to use his magic to resurrect a literal corpse, but his master beat him senseless for it, teaching him that healing is for the living. This morbid topic led Carmilla to talk about artificial life, specifically the ancient demonic art of creating golems using corrupted mana stones. Right as 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 stood up to wash the dishes, the entire clinic shook violently like an earthquake had just hit. Carmilla's ghost senses tingled, and she deduced the tremors were coming from the heart of the slums. She phased outside to check. To her absolute shock, a massive, enraged golem was treating the slums like a sandbox, smashing buildings like an angry silverback gorilla. When 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 and Carmilla arrived at Ground Zero, the place was a war zone. The mafia girls rushed over, reporting massive civilian casualties. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 immediately ordered them to act as search and rescue, dragging everyone with a pulse into one spot so he could mass heal them. Unbeknownst to our heroes, they were being watched from a rooftop by a cloaked edgelord, the guide, who had built the golem. The villain was giddy that his toy was causing so much destruction, though he complained it was a bit sluggish. He maliciously wondered how 𝐂𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 would react when the body bags started piling up. Down in the rubble, the 3 crime bosses and their surviving goons dug people out and dragged them to 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆, who was casually dropping high-tier AoE healing spells like a walking respawn point. While he kept working, Carmilla noticed 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 looked genuinely pissed off. When she asked why, he snapped that he was working massive amounts of overtime for 0 pay and swore that if he found the guy responsible, he was going to commit a hate crime. The guide, still watching, was actually stunned by 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆's mana pool, but smugly muttered that it didn't matter, because the golem would never stop until it wiped them out. Eventually, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 emptied the waiting room. Taking a breath, Carmilla warned him the golem was programmed for total annihilation. Sighing heavily, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 cracked his knuckles and announced he was going to punch the rock monster, which genuinely surprised the ghost. Zofia and the girls immediately volunteered to jump the boss with him. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 agreed, then asked Carmilla for the cheat codes to kill a golem. Carmilla stated they had to shatter the magic stone acting as its core, otherwise they were just punching concrete. Armed with the wiki knowledge, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 ordered his harem to unleash absolute hell on the monster, promising to stand in the back and play support. The girls launched themselves at the beast, and 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 immediately spammed high-level buff magic on them, basically turning the 3 women into indestructible Kryptonians. The girls absolutely loved the power trip. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 stayed dangerously close to the front line to keep the buffs active and study the golem's moves. Realizing the monster had a slow regeneration cycle, he ordered the girls to sweep the legs, and they utterly shattered its knees. However, at the last possible second, they noticed a little girl trapped in a half-crushed building right in the golem's fall path. They completely panicked, but 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 sprinted forward to save her. Strangely, as the golem collapsed, it awkwardly shifted its massive arm to deliberately avoid crushing the girl. Carmilla immediately pointed out how biologically weird that was. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆, who had been scanning the golem with medical magic, asked Carmilla a very specific question. What happens if you build a golem using a flawed mana stone? Carmilla gasped, and 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 confirmed her horrific realization. Aston was physically fused inside the magic stone, acting as a human battery for the golem. The guide had used Aston's desire for revenge to turn him into a suicide bomber. From his VIP seat, the guide was practically eating popcorn, thrilled that 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 figured it out. The stone was hardwired into Aston's nervous system. Breaking the core meant instantly killing Aston. The villain couldn't wait to see the moral dilemma break the healer. Down in the dirt, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 ordered the girls to back off. Carmilla complained about the rising sun and poofed back home. Left alone with the beast, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 tried to use talk no jutsu on Aston, but quickly realized the idiot was completely lost in a blind rage. With no other options, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 focused his mana, sliced the golem's chest wide open, and exposed Aston's real body. Without hesitating, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 drove his mana blade straight through Aston's chest. The guide rolled his eyes, deeply disappointed that 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 took the easy way out and just murdered the guy. But as he turned to leave, he realized Aston was still breathing. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 was simultaneously slicing the magic stone to ribbons while aggressively out-healing the fatal damage to Aston's organs, keeping him alive through sheer brute force medical magic. The guide was completely flabbergasted that 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 still had the mana to pull off a micromanaged surgery after healing 100 people and buffing a raid party. Aston snapped back to reality, staring at 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 in utter confusion, asking why the hell he was saving him. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 bluntly stated he needed Aston alive to snitch on the guide. He also mockingly thanked Aston for dragging him out of the slums years ago and giving him that single gold coin that let him buy Lily. But ultimately, he saved him because he was a healer, and flexing on death was his job. With one final slash, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 shattered the core and dragged Aston out of the crumbling rock. Later, as the golem dissolved into sand, a deeply humbled Aston finally looked at Xenos and admitted that Xenos was the true main character, begrudgingly respecting his god-tier skills. Aston started crying, begging for forgiveness for being a total sociopath. Xenos looked him dead in the eye, told him to brace himself, and warned him he was about to rearrange his internal organs. Aston tried to crawl away, screaming for mercy, but Xenos delivered a single nuclear-powered punch that knocked the man into the next dimension. When Aston finally woke up, Krishna was standing over him with a notepad. Aston groggily asked where Xenos went. The cop replied that the doctor went home and immediately slapped the cuffs on Aston, charging him with domestic terrorism, property damage, and public nudity. Because Xenos punched him so hard his clothes literally vaporized. She also delivered a message from Xenos. He had confiscated Aston's legendary sword as payment for the surgery and left him a single gold coin as severance. Seeing the coin made Aston violently sob, realizing Xenos had spared his life while utterly destroying his career. Meanwhile, Xenos ran into his waifu squad on the walk home, and they aggressively insisted on carrying him like a king. He was too tired to argue. Up on the rooftops, the guide decided things were getting too hot and retreated, promising to play with Xenos again soon. A few days later, Krishna barged into the clinic to give Xenos an update on the manhunt for the guide. She raided the bar where Aston met the guy, but the trail was totally cold. Zofia and the Mafia girls, who were also lounging in the clinic, smugly added that their street informants discovered the guide was a lone wolf who only recently popped up in the underground. Krishna absolutely despised taking intel from criminals and threw a snarky insult, nearly sparking World War III in the waiting room. Xenos stepped in, pointing out how ridiculous it was that they were all talking to each other while staring at the ceiling to avoid eye contact. Krishna haughtily declared she would never lower her gaze to acknowledge mobsters. Right as another screaming match started, Xenos threw all four of them out into the street. With the peace restored, Lily nervously approached him and tried to suggest they go on a romantic getaway to a hot spring. But before she could finish her sentence, Zofia kicked the door open and shouted the exact same idea, totally stealing her thunder. After Zofia left, Linga, Loeva, and even Krishna took turns walking in to suggest a hot spring trip. Xenos felt his brain physically melting. When he was finally alone with Lily again, he asked what she was trying to say earlier, but the poor elf just screamed in frustration. That night, Xenos was trying to enjoy a peaceful soak in the men's side of the hot springs when Zofia casually strolled in completely buck naked and got in the water with him. While they chatted, he realized she was aggressively closing the distance, and when he called her out on it, she lunged, trying to grab his sausage by force. Right at that critical moment, Linga busted through the doors, screaming at Zofia for trying to sample Xenos' exotic milk before her. Linga then faked a dizzy spell and tried to collapse directly into Xenos' lap. Zofia intercepted her, and the two started a naked wrestling match in the water. Just as things couldn't get more chaotic, Loeva emerged from the water like a submarine, striking bizarre bodybuilding poses to seduce him. Xenos desperately stared at the ceiling to prevent his powerful tool from booting up. Then Krishna kicked the door open, fully dressed, screaming at them for lacking basic human decency. The girls laughed and dragged the struggling cop into the water with them. Fed up, Xenos screamed at the entire circus to get out. When the girls finally retreated to the women's bath, they walked past Eamon, the licensed healer from Aston's old party, who stared at the bizarre group of women in pure bewilderment. Once in the water, Loeva went right back to hitting her poses, making Lily sigh in profound depression. She absolutely hated being the only one in the group without massive melons. But when she noticed Krishna was also severely lacking in the curve department, she felt a burst of camaraderie and happily jumped in. Carmilla suddenly floated out of the steam, offering Lily false hope by claiming Xenos was a man of culture who appreciated the smaller details. Once Lily was smiling, Carmilla trolled her by pretending to set her hair on fire. This ghostly prank caught 𝐂𝐴mon's attention, and the professional healer immediately pulled out her holy symbol to exorcise the demon. Carmilla screamed and phased directly into the men's bath, thoroughly ruining the rest of 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆's night. Later, the group had a massive feast in 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆's room, though the stubborn Krishna refused to sit at the same table as the mobsters. After dinner, the girls turned the night into a hardcore drinking contest, and all completely blacked out. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 tucked Lily into bed and sat down to have a quiet drink with Carmilla. He complained about the chaos, but Carmilla just laughed, advising him to enjoy the slice-of-life anime nonsense while it lasted, ominously predicting he was about to get dragged into something massively stupid. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 changed the subject, asking how a ghost managed to travel to a hot spring. She pointed at a wooden staff Lily brought along, claiming her soul was tied to it. When 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 asked if she owned the staff when she was alive, Carmilla masterfully dodged the question. The next morning, a literal explosion rocked the inn's kitchen, brutally injuring the head chef. 𝐂𝐴MON was the first responder on the scene, but her standard healing magic wasn't strong enough to stabilize him. When 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 casually walked in, she begged him to help her load the dying man onto a cart to reach the nearest hospital. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 told her to chill out, walked over, instantly healed the guy to 100%, and walked out with Lily to grab breakfast. The chef sat up like nothing happened, hugging his crying wife, while 𝐂𝐴MON stood there completely brain-broken, wondering if this random guy in a black trench coat was literally Jesus. Later that day, 𝐂𝐴MON returned to the Royal Hospital and reported the miracle to her boss, an elite healer named Becker. The man was highly intrigued. When 𝐴MON mentioned the black trench coat, Becker shot out of his chair, declaring they had to hunt this 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 guy down immediately. A few days later, Zan practically kicked down the clinic door carrying a half-dead Becker, screaming that the guy just collapsed and started vomiting blood. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 threw Becker on the table, did a quick scan, and diagnosed him with red lung, a highly contagious and nasty disease. He ordered Lily and Zan to scrub out of the room immediately. But 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 was suspicious, since red lung had a known cure. Suddenly, Becker sat straight up, wiped the blood off his chin, and commended 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 for the accurate diagnosis. He formally introduced himself as an elite doctor from the Royal Hospital. Seconds later, 𝐂𝐴MON rushed into the clinic, screaming at Becker for his absolutely idiotic plan of purposely infecting himself with a deadly disease just to meet 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆. Becker tried to defend his genius strategy, but started violently coughing up blood again. He casually pulled a vial out of his pocket, chugged the antidote, and explained he synthesized the virus himself just to test 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆's skills. Becker admitted he tracked 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 down because he assumed 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 was someone he used to know, based on the trench coat. 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 clarified the coat was a hand-me-down from his nameless master. Hearing this, Becker officially offered 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 a job at the Royal Hospital to help him with a secret investigation. Before 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 could say no, the three mafia bosses barged in, threatening to murder Becker if he tried to kidnap their favorite doctor. To calm the rabid waifus, Becker promised to make the job a formal contract and offered to tell 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 everything he knew about his mysterious master in exchange for his help. The girls hated it, but 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆's curiosity won, and he signed the deal. Days later, 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 arrived at the insanely massive Royal Hospital. 𝐂𝐴MON and Becker escorted him to a secure office where Becker laid out the master plan. A medical student named Alfred had mysteriously vanished, and Becker needed 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 to play detective. He enrolled 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 as a special research student, giving him VIP access to wander the facility without raising alarms. After the briefing, 𝐂𝐴MON took 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 to his dorm room, where Lily was already sitting on the bed. 𝐴MON explained that Becker pulled some strings to let Lily live there under the guise of being 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆's sister. Lily was internally screaming, wishing they had forged marriage papers instead. After 𝐂𝐴MON left, Lily tried to act like a dutiful anime wife, but 𝐂𝐵𝒄𝒆 immediately shut her down, asking where the hell she was learning this cringe behavior. Carmilla materialized on the sofa, proudly taking full credit. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 warned the ghost to stay inside unless she wanted the hospital clerics to blast her to the afterlife. At lunch, 𝐂𝐨𝐵 and 𝐂𝐴MON were gossiping about the missing Alfred when the cafeteria doors swung open and a massive entourage of doctors walked in. 𝐂𝐴MON pointed out the leader, Professor Goldrin, a Class 7 advanced healer, the highest rank before elite. 𝐂𝐴MON explained that Goldrin was a corrupt politician running for hospital director, and he exclusively treated wealthy nobles while letting peasants rot. 𝐂𝐴MON and Becker strongly suspected Goldrin murdered Alfred to cover up a scandal. The only way to find out was to get a spy inside Goldrin's inner circle. Right on cue, a loudmouth student named 𝐂𝐨𝐵 stomped over to their table, aggressively flexing his ego. Amon hated the guy, and when 𝐂𝐶𝐵 realized 𝐂𝐨𝐵 was completely ignoring him, he threw a tantrum and stomped off. Amon explained 𝐂𝐶𝐵 was a painfully mediocre healer who thought he was hot stuff because Goldrin let him join his faction. In his first class, 𝐂𝐨𝐵 sat through a boring lecture on undead monsters. The professor claimed speaking ghosts were the absolute worst threat to humanity. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 thought about Carmilla, but wisely kept his mouth shut. When the professor asked if anyone had combat experience with the undead, 𝐂𝐶𝐵 stood up and bragged about killing 30 zombies. Trying to humiliate the new kid, he mocked 𝐂𝐨𝐵, asking if he'd ever even seen a zombie. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 deadpanned that he also killed about 30 undead, except he killed them all at the exact same time with one spell. The professor was intrigued, while 𝐂𝐶𝐵 boiled with jealousy. In the next class, the teacher asked for a volunteer to draw a complex magic circle on the board. 𝐂𝐶𝐵 went up, drew a decent circle, and soaked in the praise before maliciously nominating 𝐂𝐨𝐵 to go next. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 didn't know standard hospital circles, so he just casually drew the hyper-advanced ancient circle his master taught him. 𝐂𝐶𝐵 started laughing at the weird drawing, but choked on his own spit when the professor started practically worshipping the board, claiming the circle was a masterpiece that required god-tier mana to activate. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 then casually poured mana into it, fully activating the spell without breaking a sweat. The professor dropped to his knees begging 𝐂𝐨𝐵 to join his lab, while 𝐂𝐶𝐵 stood there looking like a total clown. Word of 𝐂𝐨𝐵's flex reached Goldrin immediately. Coincidentally, a massive horde of undead attacked a local graveyard that night, and Goldrin sent 𝐂𝐨𝐵 along with 𝐂𝐶𝐵's squad to clean it up. The students were getting absolutely clapped until 𝐂𝐨𝐵 stepped in and wiped the floor with the zombies, though 𝐂𝐶𝐵 loudly took all the credit. As they turned to leave, 𝐂𝐨𝐵 warned them the boss music was still playing. The ground erupted, and a massive zombie king climbed out. The students screamed for 𝐂𝐶𝐵 to save them. 𝐂𝐶𝐵, currently wetting his pants, threw a weak healing spell at the boss, which did absolutely nothing. He turned to run, but the zombie king grabbed him and started squeezing him like a stress ball. 𝐂𝐴MON yelled at 𝐂𝐨𝐵 to let the arrogant prick die, but 𝐂𝐨𝐵 sighed and effortlessly vaporized the boss monster. Instead of a thank you, the ungrateful 𝐂𝐶𝐵 screamed at 𝐂𝐨𝐵 for interfering. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 ignored the argument, realizing the undead only swarmed the graveyard because they were magnetically attracted to Carmilla's massive ghost energy back at the dorm. When he got back to his room, he told Carmilla he knew she caused the outbreak. He told her he wasn't kicking her out, claiming it was safer to keep her close. Lily overheard this out of context and started having massive delusional romantic fantasies, wishing 𝐂𝐨𝐵 wanted her body close to him. The next day, a deeply guilt-ridden 𝐂𝐶𝐵 confessed to Goldrin's secretary that 𝐂𝐨𝐵 was the one who actually killed the zombie king. Impressed, Goldrin officially summoned 𝐂𝐨𝐵 for an interview. Becker begged 𝐂𝐨𝐵 to play along, so 𝐂𝐨𝐵 went to the office, perfectly recreated his god-tier magic circle, and was instantly drafted into Goldrin's corrupt VIP club. The next morning, 𝐂𝐨𝐵 tagged along on Goldrin's daily hospital rounds. 𝐂𝐶𝐵 admitted he vouched for 𝐂𝐨𝐵 just so he could leech off his success, which 𝐂𝐨𝐵 found refreshingly honest. Suddenly, the group stopped outside a VIP room. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 peeked inside and saw Goldrin performing a dark medical art. transferring the health from 3 healthy medical students directly into a sick noble. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 explained this was 𝐂𝐨𝐵's signature move. He basically used his students as human health potions to heal rich people, granting him massive political favor for the upcoming director elections. Realizing 𝐂𝐨𝐵 was in a chatty mood, Xenos asked about Alfred. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 admitted he hated the guy, but dropped the crucial intel that Alfred vanished right after attending one of 𝐂𝐨𝐵's exclusive secret dinner parties. Xenos reported this to Becker, who demanded Xenos do whatever it took to get an invite to that dinner. Becker then dramatically knocked some books and coins off his desk, turning to Xenos to ask an edgy philosophical question about whether all human lives hold the same value. Before Xenos could answer, 𝐂𝐴MON walked in and ruined the edgy moment by telling Becker he was late for a meeting. The next day, 𝐂𝐸𝐵 dragged Xenos to go pet 𝐂𝐿DRIN's precious dog. In the hallway, they ran into 𝐂𝐿DRIN's first secretary, Bonds, a miserable, raging alcoholic. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 tried to kiss up to him, but Bonds basically told the kid to touch grass. Bonds then randomly chucked his empty liquor bottle at 𝐂𝐸𝐵. The sudden crash terrified 𝐂𝐿DRIN's dog, who ripped the leash out of 𝐂𝐸𝐵's hands and bolted outside, directly into the path of a speeding carriage. The dog was absolutely flattened. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 had a total meltdown, knowing 𝐂𝐿DRIN was going to murder him. Taking pity on the pathetic simp, Xenos stepped up and flawlessly resurrected the dog, completely shattering 𝐂𝐸𝐵's reality. That night, 𝐂𝐴MON cornered Xenos outside his dorm and apologized for dragging him into this mess, stating that if she wasn't a failure, Becker wouldn't have hired a mercenary. Xenos told her to stop throwing a pity party and reminded her he was getting paid. They bonded over their respective mentors, with 𝐴𝐿MON revealing Becker was actually her uncle. Xenos gave her some solid anime protagonist advice about believing in her friends. On their way back, a panicked 𝐂𝐸𝐵 sprinted up to them, begging Xenos to save his life. Earlier that day, 𝐂𝐿DRIN had met with Lord Fennel, whose daughter Charlotte had developed a horrific, rapidly growing tumor on her face. 𝐂𝐿DRIN knew the only fix was to physically cut the tumor out and use dozens of students to health transfer her a new face, but Charlotte refused to let a crowd of peasants see her deformed. Stressed out, 𝐂𝐿DRIN went to pet his dog, only to run into the drunk Bonds, who snitched that the dog got hit by a carriage and miraculously healed by 𝐂𝐸𝐵. 𝐂𝐿DRIN violently cornered 𝐂𝐸𝐵, demanding he use his miracle magic to fix the noble's daughter. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 begged Xenos to do the surgery for him to save his skin. Xenos refused to play along until Lily walked in with tea. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 immediately tried to aggressively flirt with the elf, which pissed her off so much she demanded Xenos make 𝐂𝐸𝐵 suffer. The next day, 𝐂𝐿DRIN, 𝐂𝐸𝐵, and Xenos went to Fennel's mansion. Charlotte was locked in her room, throwing a massive tantrum. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 tried to smooth-talk her through the door, hoping to secure a rich sugar mama, but she brutally roasted his social status and told him to get lost. 𝐂𝐿DRIN ordered Xenos to try. Xenos walked up to the door and coldly stated that if she didn't get the surgery, she was going to end up looking like a swamp hag. Everyone panicked, but reverse psychology worked. Charlotte ripped the door open. However, when 𝐂𝐿DRIN couldn't guarantee the surgery would be scar-free, she stormed out to the balcony. Xenos followed her out, noticing she was crying over a bird with a broken wing. She gave a pathetic speech about how she and the bird were both permanently broken. Xenos ignored her sobbing and aggressively demanded to know if she wanted to be healed. He bullied her until she screamed yes. Right then, Xenos cast a silent spell. The bird's wings snapped back into place and it flew away. Charlotte was stunned and agreed to the surgery. During the operation, 𝐂𝐸𝐵 was holding the scalpel under 𝐂𝐿DRIN's supervision. Everything was fine until 𝐂𝐸𝐵 realized the tumor roots were wrapped around her facial nerves. He begged to stop, knowing one slip would permanently paralyze her face. 𝐂𝐿DRIN, caring only about his reputation, physically grabbed 𝐂𝐸𝐵's hand and forced the blade down, slicing the nerve. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 screamed in horror, alerting Fennel outside. 𝐂𝐨𝐵 immediately threw 𝐂𝐨𝐵 under the bus, blaming the kid for the botched surgery. Disgusted by the old man's cowardice, Xenos pushed them both aside, summoned his mana tools, and flawlessly repaired the nerve damage and wiped out the tumor. When Charlotte woke up, she cried tears of joy and demanded to know the name of the dark-haired doctor who saved her, completely ignoring 𝐂𝐵𝐵. Back at the hospital, Becker was thrilled that Xenos pulled off the miracle, guaranteeing 𝐂𝐨𝐵 would invite him to the VIP dinner. Right on cue, 𝐂𝐿 ran over with the golden tickets. That night, Xenos, Lily, and 𝐂𝐿 attended the lavish party at 𝐂𝐿DRIN's estate. Xenos and Lily cornered the drunk secretary Bonds, asking about Alfred. Bonds slurred that Alfred was the only guy who treated him like a human. Lily practically force-fed Bonds 2 more bottles of wine until the man was completely wasted. Xenos dragged him into the garden and asked what happened the night Alfred vanished. Bonds, barely able to stand, mumbled something about the night 13 years ago when 𝐂𝐿DRIN gained his fame by saving Fennel from an explosion. Before he could drop the real lore, Bonds completely passed out. Back inside, Carmilla popped out of thin air, playing detective. She theorized that 13 years ago, 𝐂𝐿DRIN stole another healer's credit to get his professor title, and Alfred found out, forcing him to go into hiding. Meanwhile, back in the slums, Xand was bleeding out on the clinic floor while the mafia waifus panicked. At the party, the front doors were suddenly blown off their hinges by 𝐸MAN and the Beast Girl squad, who had beaten 𝐂𝐿DRIN's guards into comas just to find Xenos. Zofia fell to her knees, begging Xenos to save her brother. 𝐂𝐿DRIN was absolutely disgusted, screaming at Xenos for associating with filthy demi-humans. Xenos completely ignored the racist boomer, scooped Lily into his arms, and leaped out the shattered window. 𝐂𝐿DRIN swore Xenos would never work in this town again. 𝐂𝐿 looked at 𝐂𝐿DRIN, looked at Xenos jumping out the window like a complete badass, and decided he wanted to be a Chad too. 𝐂𝐿 formally quit the faction and threw himself out the window after Xenos. The next day, Xenos reported the 13-year-old explosion lore to Becker. Becker ominously stated his job was done and promised a grand finale. Later that night, while 𝐂𝐿 and 𝐸MAN were throwing Xenos a goodbye party in his dorm, the real plot unfolded at 𝐂𝐿DRIN's second VIP dinner. 𝐂𝐿DRIN was sipping wine with Lord Fennel, reminiscing about the explosion 13 years ago. Back then, 𝐂𝐿DRIN had coldly walked past dying peasants to save the wealthy Fennel, and Bonds had snapped a photo of it. 𝐂𝐿DRIN was forced to hire Bonds to keep him quiet. Suddenly, Becker walked up to 𝐂𝐿DRIN and casually poured him a glass of wine, congratulating him on winning the election. Fennel took the stage to give a speech, but 𝐂𝐿DRIN cut him off to hide his dark past. Meanwhile, 𝐸MAN was snooping in Becker's office and found the original photo from 13 years ago. To her horror, she saw a young Alfred standing next to Becker's dead fiancé in the rubble. Back at the party, 𝐂𝐿DRIN realized everyone in the room, including Fennel, was foaming at the mouth and unconscious on the floor. Becker coldly revealed he had poisoned the entire wine supply. He gave 𝐂𝐿DRIN a microdose just so the arrogant bastard could stay awake to watch his empire burn. Becker admitted he got the full story from a drunk Bonds. He accused 𝐂𝐿DRIN of letting innocent people die for a paycheck. 𝐂𝐿DRIN screamed for the antidote. Becker chugged the rest of the poisoned wine, laughed in his face, and told 𝐂𝐿DRIN that if he wanted to survive, he'd have to use his health transfer magic to drain the dying nobles on the floor to save himself, perfectly recreating the moral dilemma from 13 years ago. 𝐂𝐿DRIN, being an absolute monster, immediately started draining the life force of his unconscious guests to purge the poison from his own veins. Becker coughed up blood, ready to die for his revenge. Suddenly, the doors flew open, and Xenos marched in with 𝐂𝐿 and 𝐸MAN. Taking one look at the mass casualty event, Xenos casually rolled up his sleeves. Becker screamed at Xenos to stop, explaining that 13 years ago, his fiancée bled to death in the dirt, while 𝐂𝐿DRIN ignored her to heal a rich guy. Alfred had survived the blast, told Becker the truth, and then vanished. Becker wanted Goldrin to suffer. Crescent screamed at Becker, stating that poisoning a room full of people didn't make him any better than Goldrin. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 didn't say a word. He just stepped into the center of the room and unleashed a massive, blinding wave of healing magic. Becker scoffed, claiming 𝐂𝐸𝐵 couldn't heal an unknown chemical poison. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 basically said, "Skill issue," and continuously out-healed the poison's damage per second until the toxins completely broke down. Everyone woke up, except Goldrin, who the medical team deliberately ignored out of sheer spite. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 walked over to the shivering, poisoned professor, slapped a completely astronomical medical bill on his chest, and told him to pay up if he wanted to live. With Fennel staring daggers at him, Goldrin pathetically agreed. The next morning, 𝐂𝐸𝐵 and Amon visited Becker in prison. Becker revealed a massive plot twist. The powder he put in the wine wasn't actually lethal poison. Someone else had secretly swapped his harmless powder with military-grade neurotoxin right before the party. 𝐂𝐸𝐵 deduced that Alfred was the one who sabotaged the wine, hoping to assassinate everyone. Becker warned 𝐂𝐸𝐵 to watch his back, as Alfred was definitely going to target him next for ruining the massacre. Later, on a dark balcony overlooking the city, the guide, the lunatic who built the golem, pulled back his hood, revealing the face of Alfred. He maniacally laughed, declaring that wearing Alfred's skin was highly entertaining, and promised to make 𝐂𝐸𝐵's life a living hell. The next day, 𝐂𝐸𝐵 and Lily finally packed their bags and left the Royal Hospital, waving goodbye to Crescent and Eamon. But the second they arrived back at their run-down clinic in the slums, the front door was kicked open by the 3 mafia waifus, ready to drag him into more nonsense. What is the guide's ultimate master plan? Will his true identity be exposed, or will this chaotic game of cat and mouse end in absolute disaster? If you want to keep up with more unhinged anime recaps, where the protagonists are dangerously dense and the waifus are violently thirsty, make sure to hit that subscribe button for the Curious Nerd channel. We serve the best degenerate lore on the internet. See you in the next one.